The bottle is empty. The drink is gone. At a German supermarket checkout, the register still charges for it, 25 cents. Not for flavor, not for branding. For the right to walk out holding a piece of packaging the law has turned into a tiny, portable debt. A customer in Berlin, or Cologne, or a village shop in Lower Saxony sets a single-use plastic bottle on the belt. The scanner reads a price for the liquid. Then it adds a second number the bottle cannot shed. The receipt prints two lines that do not feel like the same purchase. One is consumption. The other is collateral. This is Germany's bottle deposit system, and the paradox is brutal in its simplicity. An empty disposable bottle retains a legally created cash value after the drink itself is gone. The container is trash in the hand and money in the rulebook. Most people throw packaging away when the product ends. Here, the product can end, and the packaging still has a posted price. Those 25 cents are not a tip, not a recycling slogan, not a store coupon. They are a mandatory deposit on covered single-use beverage packaging. Hand the eligible empty back, and the 25 cents return.
Keep it, lose it, toss it in a park bin, and the cash stays stranded in the object. The law does not do this to every bottle. Reusable glass, branded crates, refillable lines live under different amounts and different circulation rules. The 25-cent rule attaches to covered single-use containers. That distinction is the whole plot, not a footnote. Follow one bottle, not a brand history, not a lecture on waste. One container, from the moment the cashier adds 25 cents to the ticket, through a national marking system, through a retailer's legal duty to take it back, through a reverse vending machine that reads a security mark, through a clearinghouse that has to make the money match when the empty shows up in a different store than the full one left. The drink is the least interesting part of the transaction. The empty is the market.
Germany did not stumble into this second price by accident. For decades, the country ran two packaging worlds that looked similar on a shelf and behaved like different currencies once the cap came off. One world is reusable. Bottles designed to be washed, refilled, and sent out again, often riding in stamped crates that themselves carry a deposit. Their amounts are not the statutory €0.25 of the one-way system. 8 cents on a classic beer bottle, 15 cents on many refillable soft drink or water bottles, €1.50 on a crate. Those numbers belong to circulation contracts and trade custom, not to the one-way clearinghouse. The other world is single-use. A polyethylene terephthalate bottle, an aluminum can, a glass container meant to be used once and then claimed by a return machine. That world received a hard legal price in 2003 when Germany imposed a mandatory one-way deposit after earlier voluntary collection targets failed to keep disposable packaging from flooding the market. The political fight of those years is not folklore. Retailers warned of chaos at the counter. Beverage fillers warned of logistics they did not own.
Cities watched parks fill with light plastic that had no posted value and therefore no hunter. The deposit was the state's answer. If convenience packaging would not stay inside a refill loop, then the empty would be given a cash claim large enough to change a walk home. The amount settled at 25 euro cents, high enough that leaving the bottle on a train seat felt like leaving a coin. High enough that a student, a pensioner, or a person collecting from public bins could treat the street as a scattered till. What most shoppers still miss is the legal seam inside the fridge aisle. A brown glass beer in a branded crate is not processed like a clear plastic cola. A refillable water bottle with a worn scratch pattern is not the same instrument as a one-way bottle wearing a registered security mark. Mix them in a bag, and a reverse vending machine will accept one family and spit the other back with a mechanical shrug. The 2024 calendar made the seam sharper.
Germany's Environment Agency records that from the 1st of January that year, the deposit obligation expanded again, pulling additional single-use beverage packaging into the same €0.25 rule, the same retailer take-back duty, the same consumer refund, and the same nationwide clearing requirement. Dairy drinks and other once-exempt lines crossed the line. Shoppers who had tossed those containers with the regular waste suddenly found a second price on the receipt and a new reason to keep the empty upright. The expansion is not a rumor and not a marketing campaign. It is a documented widening of coverage, and it is also the reminder the system needs.
coverage is a list, not a vibe. A bottle can look identical to its neighbor and sit outside the rule. Another can look ordinary and carry a legally enforceable 25 cents. The historical blind spot is that tourists, and plenty of residents, treat fond as a national personality trait, a cultural quirk about neatness. It is not neatness. It is a market rule layered onto objects. Before 2003, a discarded can was mostly a municipal problem. After the obligation, the same can is a claim check.
The 2024 widening proved the state was still willing to move the border of that claim. The contradiction from the checkout does not fade in this history. It hardens. Germany did not make every empty precious. It selected a class of disposable beverage packaging, stamped a uniform amount on it, and built a return market so that the stamp would mean the same thing in a hypermarket in Munich and a kiosk in Kiel. The rest of the bottle universe kept its older, quieter arithmetic.
The protagonist is not a founder with a memoir. It is a coordination problem wearing a corporate name. Deutsche Pfandsystem GmbH, the DPG, exists so that a bottle sold by one company can be lawfully returned to another without the second company eating the refund. Its public process is blunt. A producer or first distributor who wants to put covered one-way packaging on the German market must register, mark the container, and enter a deposit circuit that treats 25 cents as a transferable obligation. The mark is not decoration. It is the ticket that lets a machine, a clerk, and a clearing file agree that this object is in the system. Retailers are the reluctant tellers of this bank. A supermarket does not merely sell drinks. Once it offers the relevant packaging types, German rules pull it into take-back. Large stores cannot hide behind the excuse that they never stocked that exact brand. If they sell the material and the category, they become a return window for other people's empties. Small shops live under a narrower duty, taking back what resembles their own assortment, which is why a corner kiosk can legally refuse a sack that a warehouse store must swallow.
That size line is not courtesy. It is how the law rations unpaid labor at the counter. Fillers and brand owners want volume without owning a nationwide fleet of dirty plastic. Their incentive is to ship full goods as far as possible and let the return obligation become a data problem rather than a warehouse problem. The DPG process is the instrument that converts a physical bottle into a countable event. Each accepted return is a claim against the party that first placed the corresponding unit into commerce. Without that ledger, every retailer would defend its doorway. With it, the doorway can open because someone else will be billed. Then there are the unofficial cashiers. In German cities, people work the bins, the festival fences, the soccer stadium gates. They are not a charity subplot. They are rational responses to a posted price left in public. A discarded eligible bottle is a 25-cent note that does not need a wallet, only a bag and time. Store clerks sit between those hunters and the machine, unjamming crushed cans, rejecting crushed labels, watching the queue form on Saturday morning when households finally empty the balcony. Their motive is throughput. A stalled automaton is a labor cost and a customer argument. Umweltbundesamt sits further back, publishing the coverage rules, the expansion dates, the reminder that the obligation is statutory. It does not run the machines. It defines which objects must enter the circuit. Every faction wants something the bottle cannot give all at once. Manufacturers want a clean sale. Retailers want the customer and not the slime in the collection room. Collectors want the stranded cents. The agency wants fewer one-way corpses in the landscape. The DPG wants the counts to balance. The empty, passed from hand to hand, is the only object that can settle those motives without a speech. Watch the same single-use bottle leave the belt. The cashier has already added the deposit. The customer walks out with a full drink and an invisible payable taped to the plastic. At home, the liquid disappears in minutes. The bottle remains, slightly sweet, slightly crushed, legally still worth €0.25 if it stays identifiable. Days later, it rides back in a tote with other empties, some eligible, some not, a household's sloppy portfolio of claims. The store's reverse vending machine is the first hard gate. In present tense, the bottle goes in neck first. A scanner hunts the barcode. Another sensor hunts the DPG security mark.
the registered sign that separates a true one-way deposit container from a look-alike imported from a jurisdiction that never joined this ledger. If the mark is torn, soaked into a gray smear, or missing, the machine rejects the object with a dull knock. No romance, no lecture. The claim dies at the iris. If the mark holds, the machine swallows the bottle, compresses it so it cannot be fed through a second time, and prints or adds a voucher line. 25 cents credited. A can beside it, if covered, receives the same amount.
A reusable beer bottle fed by mistake comes back out. The legal families do not share a throat. That is the first tension, and it is physical. Idealism says the public wants recycling. Reality says the public wants a machine that does not argue. Retailer take-back duty turns the doorway into a forced market. A chain hypermarket that sells PET sodas must accept DPG-marked PET beverage bottles even when the brand on the label is a rival's, even when the original sale happened 3 federal states away. The staff room fills with other companies' compressed plastic. The store paid refunds it never collected at its own checkouts. Without a clearing step, that store would be a donation box. The DPG deposit process exists for this mismatch. Counts of containers placed on the market are set against counts of containers taken back. Reverse vending data, registered labels, and the obligations of first distributors become a nationwide settlement. The retailer that refunded a stranger's bottle is supposed to be made whole. The company that shipped the full bottle is supposed to fund that whole. The bottle bought on Monday in Hamburg and returned on Thursday in Stuttgart is the entire product. Settlement is the product. Then the unreturned path. Not every container comes home. Some go into residual waste. Some leave the country in a tourist's bag and die in a foreign bin where the mark is meaningless. Some are so mutilated, the machine cannot read them, and a clerk will not override. When the eligible empty is not returned, the consumer does not receive the 25 cents. The cash claim expires in the object's failure to reappear. The first distributor who charged the deposit down the chain has no matching return to pay against. That leftover is not a cartoon villain speech. It is arithmetic created by a mandatory price that only pays on proof of return. Environmental agencies describe the obligation as a tool to raise return rates. The same tool, when a unit vanishes, leaves the deposit with the side of the ledger that issued it. The wound is built in. Raise the return rate, and the leftover shrinks. Fail to return, and the price signal still worked on everyone who bothered, while the missing bottles subsidize the parties that billed the deposit. Fraud pressure lives at the same gate. A mark that can be copied is a mark that can be farmed. Machines that accept crushed mystery plastic invite double counting. The registered process, the security label, the destruction of accepted containers, the audit trail of reverse vending files. These are not green decorations. They are anti-counterfeit rails around a 25-cent currency that would otherwise be printable on any clear bottle. Clerks learn the failure modes the way bank tellers learn fake notes. A washed-out label, a foreign barcode that almost fits, a crate of unlabeled glass someone hopes to talk through. Escalation is quiet and national. After the 2024 coverage widening, machines that had been tuned for sodas, waters, and beers began meeting new household rhythms. Breakfast drinks, dairy mix bottles, formats that used to vanish with the yogurt pots. Queues lengthen, rejection rates spike on unfamiliar labels. Retailers argue about storage rooms that smell like spoiled milk instead of cola. Fillers who never lived inside DPG paperwork now have to register marks and survive audits. The barrier that breaks is the old mental map that deposit was a beer and cola story. The domino is operational. Every new stock-keeping unit is another object that must be recognizable to a tired automaton on a Monday morning. Another conflict sits under the environmental banner and does not resolve. Policy language prefers reusable circulation. Wash, refill, send the same thick bottle out again. The one-way deposit does not convert a disposable bottle into a reusable one. It converts disposal into a paid return. Retailers who invested in refill crates watch shoppers grab lighter one-way PET because the empty still pays a higher statutory amount than many refillables. 25 cents can outbid 8. The incentive is not a morality play. It is a posted number winning a second contest the law did not fully score.
Manufacturers lean into the lighter bottle that travels farther for less fuel and still satisfies the deposit rule. Reusable systems lean on tradition, on gastronomy, on regional breweries whose crates are their fleet. The climax is not a courtroom gavel.
It is a Saturday machine that beeps, prints a slip for €4.75, and leaves a crushed secret in its bin. This store just paid out deposits for bottles it never sold, and somewhere a clearing file has to catch that fact before the margin does. If the file lags, the retailer floats a national currency from its cash drawer. If the mark fails, the consumer's claim evaporates in a plastic clatter. If the bottle never arrives, the €0.25 remains a charge without a refund, a legally created price that found no second handshake. The system works by remaining slightly unfinished. Every successful return is a completed trade. Every missing bottle is an open account the landscape keeps.
A market usually dies when the good is consumed. Taste ends, thirst ends, the receipt becomes a memory. Germany's one-way deposit interrupts that death with a second, smaller market that begins only after the first is finished. The object left behind is assigned a uniform claim, a duty to take it, a machine that can recognize it, and a clearing file that can move the claim across firms that do not otherwise trust one another. That is not sentiment about cleanliness. It is a demonstration that a state can mint a price on residual matter and force manufacturers and retailers into a return chain they would not volunteer to operate at this scale. The consumer feels the mechanism as a habit. Keep the bottle upright. Do not peel the label. Do not leave the claim on a park bench unless you are comfortable donating it to whoever walks past with a bag. Those gestures look like virtue. They are responses to a number. Change the number and the gestures move. Set the number to 0 and the parks fill again. Raise it and the unofficial collectors appear at the stadium exits like a second closing shift. Workers inside the stores learn a different lesson. They are not recycling priests.
They are clerks of a microcurrency that arrives sticky and leaves as a voucher. Their Saturday is a liquidity event. The industry lesson is colder. Once packaging carries a redeemable amount, it cannot be treated as a free waste sink. The first distributor is chained to the last machine. Competitors become each other's return desks. A national mark becomes more valuable than a brand logo because the logo does not open the shutter. The distinction the law keeps drawing, single-use versus reusable, remains the unhealed cut. One regime pays for a trip to a grinder and a ledger. The other pays for a trip back to a washer and a filler. Shoppers experience both as fond, a single folk word covering two economies. The word hides the fork. Policy that wants more washing must compete with a €0.25 that makes the disposable empty feel richer than many bottles designed to live. Picture the compressed PET in the dark of a collection bag, riding a truck that is not going to a refill hall. It has already done its economic job. It changed a disposal decision. It forced a refund through a store that did not sell it. It asked a clearing system to treat trash as an invoice.
Somewhere a mark was read. Somewhere a mark was not. The liquid is long gone. The price is the part that remains, but only if a human being still bothers to carry the proof. If an empty can be given a cash value by statute and an entire retail floor can be conscripted to honor it, what other discarded object would change its life if the law printed a price on its side and waited to see who brought it back?